Wongwin's voice cut through the chaos. They looked stronger than they had any right to. He screamed at his people not to drop their guard for a single second, to fight every one of these bandits like they were twice the swordsmen they appeared to be. He didn't wait for a reply. He was already moving, and one clean stroke of his blade put the nearest green forest fighter on the ground. For a heartbeat, the bandits flinched back from him. It didn't last. More of them kept pouring out of the tree line, and within moments the defenders found themselves boxed in from every direction. While the rest of the group fought for their lives, a handful of green forest swordsmen quietly closed a ring around Dujuk. He could feel the killing intent radiating off every one of them. His hands had gone numb, his sword felt like it weighed a mountain, and his vision was starting to swim. He'd burned through nearly all of his energy just staying alive up to this point. The bandits saw exactly how spent he was, and they didn't hesitate to close in. Dujuk raised his blade with whatever strength he had left, but a sword was already at his throat before he could even set his stance. He was certain this was how it ended for him. That's when a stone hit. Not just a stone thrown with enough internal energy behind it to drop a grown man instantly. Before Dujuk could process what had happened, more of them followed, each one finding its mark with impossible precision, and one by one the swordsmen around him crumpled to the ground unconscious. Dujuk looked up. Sitting on the roof of the carriage like the battle below wasn't even worth his attention was Wanho, watching him with an expression of pure annoyance, like Dujak's existence itself was an inconvenience. Trouble magnet, Wanho called him, before Dujuk could even ask what he was doing there. Wanho didn't wait for an answer. His master used to say the most dangerous thing on a battlefield wasn't a clever enemy or a brave one. It was an ally who couldn't hold his own. Honestly, Wanho added, after today, I think I'd take the useless ally over you. At least a useless ally doesn't drag every enemy in the area down on top of himself. Every word landed harder than a blade. Dujuk had nothing to say back. He just stared at the ground, ashamed, wishing he'd died on that sword rather than become dead weight for everyone else. A single tear slid down his face as he mumbled an apology. That's when Wongwin's shouting reached them. He wanted to know exactly what his son thought he was doing up there while people were dying, whether that sword was just for decoration. Wanho, completely unbothered, called the whole thing a misunderstanding and immediately turned it around on his father. What if he'd left his post and one of these bandits had slipped past everyone and gotten to their mother? Was Wongwin seriously suggesting he should abandon her to go swing a sword around with everyone else? Cold sweat broke out on Wongwin's face. He tried to argue, but Wanho, flicking another stone into an attacker's skull without even looking, kept talking over him, insisting he was doing more good up here than he would down in the fray. He was providing, in his words, aerial support, and a warrior of Wongwin's caliber should already understand something that basic. Wongwin had no comeback. He silently promised himself that once they reached Mount Hua, his son was getting a very long lecture, then went straight back to cutting down bandits, watching them start to break and retreat under his blade, wondering in the back of his mind who these people actually were. They didn't fight like common bandits. Up on the carriage, Yurin was shaking, watching a real fight up close for the first time in her life. Lizohea put a hand on her shoulder and told her not to be afraid she'd protect her, no matter what happened. Yurin thanked her quietly, right as one of the green forest fighters erupted in a cloud of black energy, veins bulging, screaming that he'd tear everyone apart. He didn't get the chance. A hand punched through his chest from behind and closed around his heart. His own leader had killed him. I told you not to use that, the leader said flatly, before crushing the heart in his fist and telling his men he had no use for dogs that don't listen. Not a single subordinate dared to speak. He looked over what was left of his men and asked if anyone else wanted to disobey him. Silence. He ordered them to kill every last enemy in front of them or die trying. Either way, nobody was walking away from this. His men surged forward with fresh, desperate resolve. Wongwin dodged a strike and drove his blade straight through a bandit's chest, and the man kept walking forward onto the blade, driving it deeper into himself, eyes empty of anything but the need to kill. Wongwin kicked him away just in time and understood immediately what he was dealing with. Men who didn't fear death were the most dangerous opponents there were. He shouted for everyone to hear it. The enemy wasn't normal, and from this point on, survival came before anything else. Elsewhere, Wonho's own students were holding their ground far better than expected against fighters who were, on paper, stronger than them. One of them dodged a strike that felt almost lazily slow and realized, with a chill, exactly why that was the brutal training they'd all been put through. Nearby, Zhang Yao watched Wonho cut down bandit after bandit like they were nothing, the gap between them impossible to ignore even though they were the same age. Guang Heng was supposedly a level above Wonho, but nothing on this battlefield backed that up. When Wonho slammed his blade into the ground and sent a shockwave that dropped every bandit within reach, Zhang Yao couldn't do anything but stare. Wonho just glanced over and asked why he was standing around when there were still enemies to deal with. Then, with a burst of speed, Wonho dropped down between both sides of the fight, and the battlefield went quiet around him. He'd wanted to stay back and let his students get real combat experience. He said, as their instructor, that mattered to him, but this had gone too far. His voice didn't waver. He was going to cut down every last one of them.